Once was a powerhouse neighborhood for black businesses, now has an interstate running through it. I'm going to explain the history of a neighborhood that many people may not be aware of. I have family that lives at Rondo neighborhood in St. Paul. Today I'll be talking about the Rondo neighborhood located in St. Paul, Minnesota, which was home to African American businesses, churches, and schools in the late 19th century and early 20th century. I'm going to be specifically talking about the history of Rondo, what happened to Rondo, and what the neighborhood is like today. First, the history. The name Rondo comes from Joseph Rando, who was a settler, immigrant who came to Minnesota, and he lived in Fort Snelling for a while. Eventually he left Fort Snelling because of the discrimination he was facing with his wife, who was a mixed race immigrant. Eventually he moved to what is now today called Rondo. When he moved, Rondo kind of became a safe haven neighborhood for immigrants and people of color. In the 1910s and 20s, culture began to boom in Rondo. A lot of immigrants were coming, people of color. In the 1930s, half of St. Paul's African American population was all living in Rondo, in the Rondo neighborhood. This information comes from Minnesota Historical Society. Next, I'm going to talk about what happened to Rondo. So what did happen to Rondo? In the late 1950s, an Interstate 94 was built. This destroyed the community. It went straight through the neighborhood. So what was the damage? One in every eight black person was living. One in every eight black people living in St. Paul lost a home. Also, the black businesses, churches, and schools that was developed in Rondo that began to boom were all destroyed, and everything that they have done was ruined. Lastly, I'll be talking about Rondo today. Rondo today is not doing as well as obviously as it once was before the interstate began to boom in the 1950s. Today, they're still celebrating what once happened in the Rondo neighborhood by Rondo Days, which began in 1983. This happens once a year, and it's a festival where people of all colors and come from all types of different backgrounds come together and celebrate what Rondo once was. So in works right now in 2019, they're starting to begin to talk about a land bridge, which would be a bridge of straight land over Interstate 94, which would reconnect Rondo once again, and hopefully that could kickstart the businesses and churches and schools and all the stuff that got destroyed, and help the community and get it back to what it once was. In conclusion, once was a thriving neighborhood full of diversity, now has struggled as a community due to the events that have torn the neighborhood apart. The Rondo neighborhood understands its history and is trying to strive to become the neighborhood that it once was. Thank you.